Assalamu alaikum. We'll be discussing fundamentalism today. The first and the foremost question, what is fundamentalism? When we use the word fundamentalism, we're referring to the revival of religion. In contrast to the word secularization, secularization is the decline of religion. And on the other hand, when we use the word fundamentalism, fundamentalism is the revival of religion, right? We'd speak about the origins of fundamentalism. We'd speak about the definition of fundamentalism according to Zygmunt Bauman. And we discuss other factors that possibly could be discussed over here, keeping in mind our syllabus and paper structure to understand fundamentalism better today. To start off with, according to Gabriel Amendeol, there are many fundamentalist movements that we get to see around us today, right? For instance, if we talk about Sri Lanka, we have this Buddhist fundamentalist movement. If we talk about Israel, we have Jews. If we talk about Pakistan, we have Muslim fundamentalist movements. So is the case with India, where we have Hindu fundamentalist movements, and likewise the USA. Taking it a step further, if we speak in terms of the origins of this term, right, where did this term originate from? According to Steve Bruce in 2000, the term fundamentalism was first used in the 1920s when conservative evangelical Protestants they published a series of pamphlets in which they called for a return to the fundamentals of religion or to the fundamentals of faith. Now, as we use the term fundamentalism over here, the general perception that people across the globe have about fundamentalism is that fundamentalism originated through Islam, but if you have a look at what Steve Bruce is claiming over here, it was a series of pamphlets that were published. Now, these pamphlets they spoke about calling people back to the fundamentals of the faith, right? So the origins of fundamentalism lie with Christianity and not Islam. Beneath this, if we have a closer look, there's this amazing definition of fundamentalism that was put forward by Steve Bruce. Now, in order to understand this definition better, it's advised that we break it up into different parts and then discuss it. To start off with, according to Steve Bruce, fundamentalism is a movement. It's a movement that is responding to the problems that have been created because of modernization. Now, the first question that arises over here is, what is fundamentalism? According to Steve Bruce, it is a movement. It is a movement that has been trying to respond to the problems that have been created because of modernization. Now, the question that arises over here is, how is it that this movement is trying to respond back to the problems that have been created by modernization? According to Bruce, this is being done by advocating society-wide obedience, right? We're talking about social control. We're talking about advocating society-wide obedience. Now, another question that arises from here is society-wide obedience to what? Society-wide obedience to some authentic and inherent text or tradition, right? Now, another question that arises from here is, how is it that a fundamentalist movement would be trying to do this? According to Steve Bruce, this is possible by seeking political power. According to Bruce, these fundamentalist movements, they try to seek political power. And when they do have political power, they try to impose or revitalize the traditions of society that are in accordance to religious faith. Taking it a step ahead, if we speak about Ahmadiyya, according to Ahmadiyya, there are 5 countries where fundamentalist groups have actually taken control over the state. And you see them over here in Iran, in Sudan, Turkey, Afghanistan, and not to forget India, right? Taking it a step further now, moving on towards what our book has to say about fundamentalism. To remind you all, when we talk about this topic, fundamentalism, this comes under the heading of religion and post-modernity. That is, I believe, topic number 12.3 from our book, the last topic. And having a look at what the title over here has to say, we talk about the different explanations for the growth of fundamentalist religions, referring to concepts such as cultural defense, cultural transition, disengagement, marginality, and religious revival. Fundamentalist religions. Now, if we have a closer look at this title again, we're talking about the growth in terms of fundamentalist religions, right? Now, talking about the growth over here, if we take into consideration the idea of postmodernity, we all do know by now that postmodernity is today. Today, as we speak, there is more of choice individuals have. According to the postmodernist perspective, individuals today have a lot more choice than they ever did. And guess what? More of choice leads to more of confusion. More of choice leads to more of confusion, and more of confusion leads to more of uncertainty. The more uncertainty there is, the more confused people would be, the more chances there are they would like to seek help from someone, right? Now, when we talk about seeking help from someone, this could possibly be routed, or this could be taken into two dimensions over here. Either trying to seek help through NAMs, that is New Age movements, that is a privatized form of religion, right? Or the on the other hand, the second option is getting back to traditional religions or follow fundamentalism, in other words, be a part of a fundamentalist group, right? And this, we all know, is not a privatized form of religion. This is when we talk about religion gaining its significance, gaining its popularity back again in the public arena, right? Now, let me repeat, we spoke about postmodernity. Postmodernists believe today we have more of choice. More of choice leads to more of uncertainty. And in an uncertain world, we have two options over here for an individual. Number one, to try to seek help from different forms of NAMs, that is privatized religion, or to get back to the traditions of religion. Because guess what? Where there's uncertainty, we need some or the other help. Having a look at this, fundamentalist religions. Postmodernity is a time of constant change and uncertainty. Economic, political, and cultural reflected notions of personal and social identity. And as such, it embodies a range of contradictory processes. One reaction to experiencing identity confusion is to turn inwards in search for private forms of religious experience. Now, this is what I was talking about, right? Number two, another response is to reverse this process, to reach outward, to deprivatize forms that seek to impose a sense of certainty on both believers and non believers alike. So, the first option we had over here was choosing or opting for privatized forms of religion. Number two, opting for deprivatized forms of religion. And over here, we are referring to different fundamentalist groups. Get it? Here you go, right? Taking it ahead, NAMs represent, now this is when we talk about NAMs. NAMs represent a move towards privatized forms of religious belief, religion as something practiced in the private rather than the public sphere. Number two, when we speak about the deprivatized forms of religion, fundamentalism represents an opposing process. Religion is practiced in the public sphere in ways that seek the remoralization of both the self and the society, right? I hope this is clear, and I hope everyone has understood how fundamentalism can be, or rather should be, linked to postmodernity, should be linked to today, right? Taking this a step ahead, this wonderful gentleman that you all see at the top left of the screen, Zygmunt Bauman, who recently passed away in 2017, 2018, I believe. He was a Polish sociologist from Poland. And let's have a look at how Zygmunt Bauman, or Bauman, tries to define what fundamentalism is. Bauman in 1997 claims the term fundamentalism is referred to the forms of belief in organization that advocate a strict observance of the fundamental beliefs of a religion, right? According to Bauman, fundamentalism is a form of belief and organization that advocate a strict observance of the fundamental beliefs of religion, right? Are you able to connect dots? The term is fundamentalism. We're talking about a revival of religion. We're talking about going back to the fundamental beliefs of a religion, right? Now, when we talk about these fundamental beliefs of a religion, we could talk about Christianity, we could talk about Islam as well, I hope you all get this, right? Now, fundamentalist religions draw their strength from the ability to provide certainties in an uncertain world. Link this up with what we discussed on the previous slide, where we spoke about post-modernity bringing in uncertainty, right? According to Zygmunt Bauman, a fundamentalist movement or a fundamentalist religion promises to provide certainties in an uncertain world. This may be a belief in the Christian principles laid in the Old Testament, such as an eye for an eye, or it may be the clear specification as to how men and women should dress and behave in Islam. Right now, what fundamentalism does over here is, according to Bauman, it removes the choices. Remember, let's connect dots. We spoke about post-modernity bringing in choices. And for the third time now, the more choice you have, the more chances there are of you getting confused. What fundamentalism, according to Bauman, does over here is fundamentalism removes the choices that an individuals have, the choices that have led to uncertainty. Fundamentalism is based on the idea that giving individuals clear moral guidelines, right? You provide them with clear moral guidelines. Why give them a choice if you leave someone with choice? They'd be free to do whatever they want to do, leading to more of confusion. Right now, if there is no restriction, everyone would be going about doing whatever they feel like doing. And in that case, what do you think this would result in? Someone new would stay confused, wouldn't know what to do, where to go, whom to follow, whom not to. I hope this is sorted and we all get this. Fundamentalism is based on the idea that giving individuals clear moral guidelines drawn from religious texts removes both the fear and the consequences of risk, right? When everyone knows what is allowed and what is not allowed, when you're simply removing choices, you are letting people free from the risks that they were taking, right? And if people are not taking these risks, they don't have to fear of the consequences of taking these risks either. Are we all clear? I hope we all are clear here, right? Now, taking this a step ahead, and if we speak about Sagar and Yuval Davis, this is Yuval Davis here, and this is Geeta Sagal over here from India, and she's from Israel. Yeah, she's from India. There you go. Now, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis, they came up with three different characteristics that they claimed every fundamentalist group does have, or the common features that fundamentalist groups that generally have. Number one, the first point that has to be kept in mind, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis, fundamentalist movements claim to have monopoly over any religion. In other words, they claim that their version of reality, that their version of truth is actually the true one. Right? Now, in if I put some more light on this, according to them, whatever the way is that they're trying to portray their religion to be like is the only authentic and verified form of religion and truth, right? They claim their version of religion to be the only true one. All other forms are therefore heretical and must be opposed. The first point. Number two, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis, the second common feature over here, these movements, they feel threatened by alternative secular and religious views, right? The more these secular organizations try gaining control over the society, the more threatened these fundamentalist groups would feel like. That's very simple. Religion had a lot of control back in the modern ages. Religion was everywhere and claimed to have knowledge or truth about everything. And with the passage of time, there are more scientific explanations, there are more secular organizations that are trying to take this power from religion, which pretty much gives these fundamentalist groups a reason to feel threatened. When you feel threatened, you respond back. And that's probably what these religious fundamentalist groups are trying to do. Now, the third common feature, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis over here, is that these fundamentalist groups, they try to exercise control over both an individual and the society. Right now, what sort of control are we referring to over here? We're talking about ideological control. We're talking about internal control. We're talking about external control. What sort of ideological control? They try to control what the members believe in, manipulation, influencing. Number two, internal control, how the members behave. Number three, external control, how everyone in the society behaves, because they do not want to limit their control over the group members. They want to extend it, right? They want the entire society to follow what they want them to follow. I hope you all get this. Now, once we're sorted with the common features of a fundamentalist group as put forward by Sergel and Yuval Davis, we'd move on and try to take this to another dimension over here. Let's talk about the political aspect. There you go, the political aspect, right? Now, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis, we shouldn't just miss out the possibility of these fundamentalist movements actually having a political inclination, right? Now, according to Sergel and Yuval Davis, they saw fundamentalist groups as basically political movements which have a religious imperative and seek in various ways to harness modern state and media powers to the service of their gospel. Now, let's think, let's stop, let's pause and think. What if it was true? What if religion is merely being used as a platform by these groups who have a political motive, and they're trying to use religion as a platform to get people together, so that the political motives get to where they want them to get to. Right now, Sergel and Yuval Davis, they saw fundamentalist movements as basically political movements which have a religious imperative and seek in various ways to harness, let me highlight this, which have a political religious imperative and seek in various ways to harness modern state. Right, what are they? Let's highlight this in blue. They're basically political movements according to Sergel and Yuval Davis. Right now, in other words, to put it in a simpler manner, we should see fundamentalism as a set of political ideas and practices that are used by these groups, and they use religion as a vehicle either to halt undesirable political and ideological changes. Right, there are certain political changes and ideological changes, let's just say, I am not really in favor of. I would halt them. Let's use religion to do that. Number two, to bring in changes that suit the particular ideological beliefs of that particular movement. Right? So, what we're talking about over here is political groups having, or using rather, using religion to halt a change that is occurring in the society, or number two, to bring about a change that is in their own favor. All right. Now, fundamentalist religions are therefore modern political movements that use religion as the basis for the attempt to win or consolidate power and extend social control. Right now, they're political groups, they're using religion to bring people together, to gain popularity, to probably increase their vote bank, which would result in them being politically stronger, them, let's just say, gaining control over the state. And if they're able to do so, don't you think that would automatically extend their power and give them this option of controlling everyone in the name of religion? I hope you all get this. And if you do, taking it a step ahead. Now, What all have we discussed so far? We've spoken about fundamentalism, its origins, its definition through Steve Bruce, its definition through Zygmunt Bauman. We've spoken about Searle and Yuval Davis, who explained three common features that are commonly found in fundamentalist groups. And then we linked fundamentalist groups with politics, right? Now, taking it a step ahead, another dimension. Let's talk about globalization. The world, they say, is a global village today. And if it is, don't you think fundamentalism could possibly have developed through globalization? Globalization has shrunk the world. If there's something happening in the United States, there and then we get to know about it. If there's something happening in Sri Lanka, the way people are being treated in Sri Lanka, us sitting over here, thousands of miles away from them, we get to know about it there and then. Yeah. Now, globalization and the development of fundamentalism. The contemporary development of fundamentalist religious movements, Christian, Islamic, Hindu, and Buddhist, can be explained in terms of globalization, right? Global economic and cultural processes expose people to different views and belief systems. Like I said, there's more of exposure people have today. Sitting over here, we know about things that are happening thousands of miles away from us. This leads to notions of moral relativism. Now, what is moral relativism? The idea that nothing is intrinsically good and nothing is intrinsically bad, right? Without moral certainties and rules of behavior, imposing a sense of order and stability on a world that to some has become lacking in order, unstable, and confusing. What we're talking about is globalization leading to more of exposure, more of knowledge that people are gaining about things that are happening at far-fetched places. This increased amount of knowledge that these people have has led to moral relativism, the amount of uncertainty, the idea that we cannot really differentiate between what's wrong and what's right. You all do know what the word morality means. Morality is us being able to differentiate between what's right and what's wrong. Without without moral certainties of rules and behavior, we sit over here in our part of the world, sitting over here. If we get to know about what is happening there, and there, and we see how what is happening elsewhere is different from what happens or what is considered to be true in our part of the world, don't you think this can lead to us questioning ourselves? Don't you think this can lead to a lot of confusions arising about what's right and what's wrong? Taking it a step ahead, religious revival and fundamentalism. The growth of fundamentalism within different world religions can be seen as religious revival, a development that seems to go against secularization. This is something we discussed right at the beginning, right? Secularization is the idea that religion is experiencing a decline, and on the other hand, fundamentalism is the idea that religion is not experiencing a decline and instead religion is experiencing a revival today, right? Taking it ahead, some forms of fundamentalism have attracted a great deal of attention and perceived link to violence and terrorism as well, unfortunately. When fundamentalism is defined in these terms, the numbers involved are probably very small, but large number of people have some fundamentalist beliefs, such as for some Christians, accepting the biblical account of creation in 6 days as literally true. Right now, having a look at this part again, when fundamentalism is defined in these terms, in what terms, right? In terms of this, don't you think this can have an impact on the society? It can, right? Now, when fundamentalism is defined in terms of the in terms the numbers involved are probably very small, but large number of people have some fundamentalist beliefs, right? What sort of fundamentalist beliefs are we talking about, right? For instance, if we speak about this in contrast to what science wants us to believe in, the, what do you call it, the Big Bang theory about the creation of the world, universe rather, right? So this is how we were trying to develop a link between religious revival and fundamentalism. Now, taking it ahead, let's discuss fundamentalism in terms of cultural defense. And when we speak about cultural defense over here, what if, what if you see your culture, your traditions, your customs experiencing a threat? This is probably what happened in Iran that led to this Iranian revolution back in the 1979. The Shah of Iran, as we all know, the ruler there, he was influenced by the West. And because he was influenced by the West, there's a possibility that the people in Iran, they felt like their culture was under threat. And this threat might have led to this threat might have led to expecting people to get back together, using religion as a platform again, getting people together, bringing them all together against the ruler, the Iranian Revolution. If we speak about this Iranian Revolution, this could be another possibility. I mean, why not? Religious practices are also a source of protection, a cultural defense, both physical and psychological, in a challenging world. Where a group feels that their culture, language, traditions are under threat, for example, by the spread of American or Western culture, and values greater religiosity can be used as a defense. For example, the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which led to Islamic rule, was a reaction against the Shah's attempt to bring in Western culture and against Western exploitation of Iran. The existing religion played the role of cultural defense because the great majority of Iranians shared the same religion. This is where a fundamentalist Islamic group led by Ayatollah Khomeini, but in a revolution in Iran in 1979, which led to the very westernized Iran being transformed into the very religious Iran. All right, taking it ahead. Steve Bruce in 1988, The Rise of the New Christian Right in the Southern States of the USA is another example of cultural defense, although he links it more with regionalism than with any notion of ethnicity. Bruce explains the appeal of the new Christian right as a reaction of the southern states to the tolerant era of the 1960s and 1970s, which seemed to threaten the more conservative values of the white majority in Deep South. Now, it's on your discretion. You could use this example, or you could use this example to explain how fundamentalism can be linked to cultural defense. Now, another aspect that should be taken under consideration while discussing fundamentalism is this disengagement theory. We all do have an idea about this disengagement theory. The idea that religion once used to hold a lot of popularity in almost everything, or rather say church once used to have its control over religion, over the welfare system, over health, education, or in other words, the entire society. Today, there are specialized institutions according to the idea of structural differentiation that was put forward by Talcott Parsons, a prominent functionist. Today, we have specialized institutions that are there to play the role, right? For welfare, we have a proper established welfare system in the UK. For health, we have the National Health Services. For education, we have a proper established education system in the UK, right? And now the church is only expected to take care of religion, right? This can be explained through the idea of disengagement. Rather, this is disengagement of religion from all the external affairs that it used to be involved in once, which it is no more allowed to interfere in today. This could lead to these churches, these religious organizations feeling threat. Like I mentioned earlier, who wants to let go of power and control? No one, right? So probably because religion or these churches today, they have been disengaged from external affairs. This has led to the growth of fundamentalist religious groups, where religion is trying to gain back the power that it once used to have. Having a look at this, the disengagement theory in this context would explain how, due to secularization, the church is no longer part of the wider society as it was in the Middle Ages. Back then, the church was fully involved in society. It was the power. The church controlled the state, and therefore, education and socialization was done through the church. According to Brian Wilson, this cannot be seen today, as church is seen being involved in things such as marriage and funerals only. This disengagement of church can be used to explain the growth of fundamentalism. All right, taking it to another step, another feature that we should be taking into consideration while discussing fundamentalism, that is cultural transition. Now, having a look at this, let's highlight this first. When migrant groups are adopting to a new environment, this cultural transition from their country of origin to a new land, where there are new people who have different traditions, different customs, different religion, different norms, different values. Fundamentalism plays its part over here to help individuals through this cultural transition phase. Let me repeat, fundamentalism helps in this context the immigrants. The immigrants are the ones who benefit out of this, or the immigrants, since they're the vulnerable ones, since they are in a state of confusion because they see a lot of difference from where they come from where they came from to where they are now. Right now, taking this ahead, religion can also be a source of identity, self-esteem, and support during periods of cultural transition. Religion can be seen as a source of identity, how you try to keep yourself separate from, different from others, right? This helps you in terms of your self-esteem, and it's a support system, right? For example, when migrant groups are adapting to a new environment, for example, immigrant groups in the USA found that their churches offered a supportive group with people who spoke their language and shared ties to a homeland. This helped with the transition to life in a new society, but over time became less necessary and is less likely to become less important in people's lives. Right now, we've spoken about the impact fundamentalism. We've spoken about the relationship fundamentalism has had with cultural defense, with cultural transition, with disengagement through religious revival, and now in the end we discuss fundamentalism in terms of marginality. Is it true? You see, if you talk about a fundamentalist group or any XYZ group would always want newer recruits. Where do we get these newer recruits from? Guess what? Get hold of people who are the most vulnerable sorts, the marginal groups of the society, the people. I'm assuming everyone sitting over here doesn't know what marginal or marginal groups, what I mean by the term marginal groups or what marginalization is. Marginal groups are the groups that are pushed towards a corner, like we draw a margin on a page, on in a corner, right? The groups that are pushed towards a corner in the society, the people who do not really have any say, right? Don't you think these people who don't really have any say anyway could be easy targets for these fundamentalist groups? These fundamentalist groups could actually try to attract them, These marginal groups are affected the most because of recession, in times of depression, inflation, strikes, unemployment, poverty. These marginal groups, they are they're approached by these fundamentalist religious movements because they'd be wonderful recruits, because they'd be wonderful in terms of, I mean, you could promise them things that they have never had, and what do they have to lose in any way, since they do not really have a lot. Taking it ahead, fundamentalism needs recruits, and if fundamentalist groups emerge which claim that it can provide a better life for people if they just adhere to the faith, who claim that it can provide a better life for people if they just adhere to their faith, it is more likely to grow. Moreover, like I just said, economic problems faced by marginal groups can be a major stimulus to fundamentalism. Recessions, depression, inflation, strikes, unemployment, and famine may produce grievances amongst groups in the population, inclining them favorably to fundamentalist groups. Now, this was a brief little idea that I wanted to give you all about fundamentalism. And the idea behind all of this is to encourage more of discussion. If you if the things that we discussed today, if they make sense to you, I'd want us to have a better, healthier discussion on this topic. And that is pretty much it for today. Take care of yourselves, stay happy, safe, protected, smiling, and Allah Hafiz.